If we could do one thing together before we die, what would it be? This has to be a collective answer.
Oh, dang.
Oh, we get one.
I was gonna say go to Disney. I want to go to Disney with y'all.
That would be so
That would
Which
that
we can
probably
make that
wouldn't be
happen.
my number one thing, though.
Well,
Like,
then you can't come. Just like
We'll just send you pictures.
yeah.
that's rude.
I want to see you with the Minnie Mouse ears.
No,
Oh my god, I'm scared.
I would love to go to Disney. I'm saying it wouldn't be like the only thing. We only get one choice, yeah. But I don't have a better option either, so.
A live Eden Awaits tour.
That one.
And only us four can do that together.
Just one.
Yes.
Just one what?
We do just one. Like,
Oh, yeah, because a tour is...
yeah, we wouldn't have enough time.
I think a traveling would be so fun.
Yeah, like if we all took like 3 months to do a tour.
Yeah.
Leave our families
See,
in the
now y'all are
dust.
thinking.
Hasn't said a single thing.
Maybe like a trip to Bora Bora or somewhere. Like,
A trip is fun.
super rich too, but ritzy.
Oh.
Ritzy. Like, somewhere bougie, the Virgin Islands.
Go to Greece.
Greece. Oh yeah. That's perfect.
Italy.
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah. We've never vacationed together.
We've never even like stayed the night together. All of us.
Wow.
Yeah, we should actually do that.
We
They're like, so they're not friends. We're just four random people. Yeah, fair.
Hey,
Ciarra has a
but
family.
Y'all have stayed here like super late.
We've stayed the night. We have not planned it. Like we haven't had a
haven't slept.
sleepover.
Yeah. But I'm always, if my house is down the road, I will stay super, super, super late, but I'd rather sleep in my bed.
I'm kind of the same. Like I think as an adult, it's really rare that I have sleepovers. But I'll stay sometimes at C's house.
Why do you stop having sleepovers when you get married and kids?
Oh, I can't answer that.
Yeah, me neither.
But like me and Ash don't have sleepovers either. It really is. You just want to go home, kind of.
I was gonna say, even when y'all do come here, like you can just stay. Like it's late. Just grab a blanket.
I never feel like I can't stay at y'all's houses. I just am like, oh, I'll just drive home.
I invite Tara to stay the night with me all the time, and she always says no.
That is not true. She'll ask me like while we're hanging out.
Today. This is it.
She'll ask me in the moments where I'm like, girl, let's plan it. Like right now, she'd be like, do you want to stay the night tonight? I'm like, let's maybe plan in advance.
That's true too.
See, real good friendships have honest communication.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great segue.
That was a terrible segue.
Sarcasm.
Well, hi, you guys. We're so glad that you're joining us again this week. Today, we're going to be discussing friendships. I'm super excited. We answered some Q&As at the end of our last season in December. You guys had some friendship questions, and so we're going to kind of be dialoguing around that today, and we're just going to jump right in. Let's start with, is it actually biblical to be in community and to have a friend? I feel like the world, even people project. I even saw a car the other day when I was driving, and it was like Callie something and me and myself. Like it was just like very like myself energy. And I feel like the world is very projects that like me, myself, and I. All you need is yourself. If you got yourself, like nobody can ever hurt you. And so is it actually biblical to be in community, to have friendship, to have a best friend? Let's talk about that.
It's funny because you say like it's a thing in culture, but I think it's also a thing in Christianity of like, I just need my Bible and the Lord.
Just me and the Lord.
Yeah. And like, I don't think it's biblical to live not in community. I don't really, why would God create us all so different and so uniquely if we weren't all created to be brought together? But I do think it's biblical in the sense of you see like throughout scripture, these beautiful friendships. We're in a group where we're studying out Ruth, and you get to see Ruth and Naomi, who are like unexpected friends, but they like almost are in like this beautiful like relationship with each other, even though it's like mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. But you see this a friendship created, and I think of Jonathan and David. That's probably like the example that comes to my mind the most, just because you see in 1 Samuel, it says their souls are literally knitted together. intertwined. Yeah. And that's, to me, I remember reading that and being like, oh my gosh, like this is the most beautiful display of like love and friendship that I've ever seen, that is just purely platonic. So I think there's several, like, just even like examples. Jesus was close with Peter, James, and John, you know? So I think we see it not only modeled out, but I think even scripture references friendship, and what it looks like to be in close relationship with people. And so I think it would be, I think if God created us the way that he did, it wouldn't make sense that we shouldn't in some way cross paths. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we would all just live isolated and we would never leave our house. Like,
Or he could have just created like one person.
Yeah, one person
And
to
been
get
like,
his mission
That's good.
done.
All
But,
I need, just
you know,
one person.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because I know that we talk a lot with you guys that we don't want to just talk from a place of just sitting around here and dialoguing, and we can do that all day. But the word says in Genesis 2:18 in the New King James Version, and the Lord God said that it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. And so, yes, we have the opinion of like, yeah, we think friendship is biblical, but God even saw man and was like, it's not good that he's by himself. And just like you said, there's reference multiple times throughout the Bible of friendship. You see Paul and Silas, like them together have the power to break free things. And so I think that there's a supernatural gifting on friendship. And even God himself was like, it's not good for man that he be alone, and then created man.
Well, and we also don't have a 360 view of our life. And so having a friend to be able to call out, one, your God potential inside of you, but also to hold you accountable is really important.
Yeah, I love the scripture that talks about like iron sharpening iron. And like that is what we are to one another. And when you think of the body of Christ, there's no body if it's just me. I can't be the arm, the leg, that, you know what I mean? And so I think the tendency is, like you were saying, like we bring correction to each other as godly friends. Godly friendships bring correction to one another and love, through love. But I think that mindset of like, I can do this by myself, you are almost shutting the door to correction in your life, and you can't see you might be able to see a little bit of the areas that you're like, oh, I should probably work on that. But friends help bring that to the surface in a way that's gentle and graceful. And so I think that's the danger of living in isolation, is you don't get to become as sharp as you can become when you're in communion with people. And what would be the point of fellowship and church if not for community with other people,
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that, like when the enemy does attack, the first thing he does attack is when we want to self-isolate.
Yeah.
And I think the enemy, just like you said, Ash, that we're not able to see a full picture of things. I know when there's things that when we've sat together, or when Tara and I when we sit together, there's an ability to be able to see things that I can't see when I'm just sitting with myself. And so I think even the enemy knows what strength there is and what power there is in friendship. And that's why I think culture is that's why I think there is such a big attack on best friends, or even the idea of like having a best friend, like an attack of like, no, you only need one person. Like even having the diversity of different friendships, different voices that can speak into different things. Because just like y'all just said at the beginning, I can't speak to why I sleep over. There's just that diversity of when I sit with somebody who's married versus sitting with somebody who is single. Like there's so many different layers and so many different perspectives we get, and you can't get that when you're just solely single, individually focused, or you have that mentality of like, I only need one person and that will be my all and everything.
I one verse that you put in our notes that I thought was really special is Matthew 18:20, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. And even as we were talking about how, godly friends help bring correction, but godly friends push me closer to God. And I think that verse, it highlights something beautiful, that when you come together in the name of Jesus, God is there in your midst. And what better way to get closer to God than to be running with people who are also running towards the things of God. I think we can all say, like, you've been in a friendship friendship that has maybe not pulled you away from God, but it's just kind of left you stagnant. You're not going anywhere. And I think that's what we get out of amazing God friends is you help me get closer to the God potential in my life. But not only that, but I love what I love probably the most about this friendship with you guys. I mean, there's so many things to love, but even yesterday I was having a hard day and every single one of you made it a point to have a conversation with me. Hailey, I saw you like right when you came into church, and I was just hugging someone crying, and immediately we got to have a quick conversation. Ashley, you saw me as I was leaving, walking out, and you were like, whatever you need, just call me. And then Ciarra, we got to text about it later. And I think that is the definition of what it looks like to be in community. Because it's so great when we all have amazing things and we're graduating college and we're having babies and we're getting married. Those are fun to get to I just spit. Those are fun to sit in and celebrate and to be happy and experience the joyful things. And that's the part of friendship that is exciting. But then there are the moments where you are having a hard day and we're at church for 4 services and you don't really have the space to say what's going on, but it was that greeting that I got to have, or it was that goodbye and that rubbing the back that I got to have, that I knew, okay, when I leave this place today, I get to come home and I get to sit with somebody because God has so graciously given me these friendships. And I think that's what you miss out on when you live isolated, is you don't have people, not only in the good moments, but also in the low moments. And I can't imagine the moments that I've gone through, even this year. I don't think I would have made it through without one, God, but also the people that God has brought into my life. And I think that's why isolation, where our flesh is so drawn to isolation, because it feels easier, or maybe it feels more comfortable, but our spirit knows what we need the most. And it's in those seasons where you feel the tension of your flesh and your spirit, because your spirit's like, I got to get in community. Like, I got to get around the people who are going to pull me closer to the things of God, when my flesh is like, let's run from it, you know? And so I think that's what is so beautiful about God friends, is they are encouraging, but they're encouraging in the way that they lead you towards the things of God.
Yeah. I feel like it's so special too how you said like those people that God sent you, because I do feel like like God isn't physically here on earth with us to give us hugs and to do those things and to like be a shoulder to cry on. Like, he physically provides that through other friends and our friendships that we have. And I just think that that's so special. Like, I can count so many times, even just in the last month, when someone has shown up just at the right time, or texted me just at the right time, or said something that I've been praying about like so hard, and they're like, oh, hey, like, have you thought about this? And it's like, that's just the confirmation I needed. Like, God is always using different people in my life to like reveal himself more even. Yeah.
That's good.
The fly.
I know, the fly. Get the gun.
Real ones know. First season. And when I was thinking, oh God. Well, one thing I think that we should touch on, because I fully believe God sends, like we were saying, God sends friendships into your life. What does it look like on our end, though, to cultivate friendships? Because I think God sent me all 3 of you, but if I would have been like, nah, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does it look like to then cultivate? If God does his part, what is our part?
I think that's a great question, but I do think we need to go back one question of, what do you do when you're in the position of, I want these godly friendships, but I don't have them? We read all of your guys' comments, and I see all the time people are like, I love you guys' friendship. I'm praying for that types of friendship, which, side note, we love your comments. So please leave us a comment. We love reading them. But I remember being in a season like that of, God, you're taking these friendships out of my life, because I prayed that bold prayer of like, God, anything that is keeping me from being fully in with you, whatever is keeping me in my sin, whatever is prohibiting me from moving forward with you, take it out of my life. And so when friendships started going away, I was like, what the heck? I didn't mean that. And I at least thought when a friendship was taken away, he was going to replace it right away. And that's not what happened. And so I would say for about a year, I was like, God, like, I'm praying for these friends. Like I want a godly community to push me closer to you. And honestly, like, I'm just bored and alone. Like, who am I supposed to hang out with? And it makes you want to reach out to the people that were brought out of your life for a reason and be like, hey, like, let's go hang out, just because you're like, I have no one else. But I realized in that time, God was making me learn how to just be with him and learning to find my identity in him. And then he brought the friendships in my life because I realized I was allowing the people who were around me to define who I was. Yeah. And so I needed that time to find myself in God alone. Mm-hmm. And then God was like, okay, let me give you the friendships. And I didn't just stay at home and God bring them to my front door. When I got an invitation to a Valentine's Day or a Galentine's Day party, I really, honestly, I don't think I've ever even told you this. I almost didn't go.
I would have been so sad. I would have been like, where you at?
But
where you at?
I honestly didn't know who was invited. And I was like, I'm only going to know Hailey and she's going to be hosting with her family and all the things. So I'm not going to have anyone to talk to. But I went anyways. And that's when I met all of you. Well, reconnected with you, but met you. And I really think it's about putting yourself out there. And then we can talk about cultivating the relationship. But after that, I was like, hey, I really enjoyed talking with you guys again. Let's get together again.
Yeah. It's funny, Ash, that you like went down that road because you essentially answered her question.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
You answered her question, but like you also answered another question. And I think realistically, you don't go to church or get saved and immediately are embedded in these deep relationships. And I remember somebody talked to me one time and they're like, I got baptized last week and like, I still don't have any friends. I don't feel like anything's changing. And I think the reality of it is that we think we go one time, we show up one time, we agree to hang out one time with a better person than what we usually hang out with. And we think immediately it's going to be an instant, deep and like close knit relationship like we read and that we hear about or that we see about. But the reality of it is just like you said, it took you showing up. Mm-hmm. It takes there to be a level of vulnerability. It takes, it takes a part of us that has to lay down the pride of, I'm actually going to go, even if Hailey is busy hosting and hopefully maybe make a new friend. And that's how we connected. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I was like smiling over here because God was like, she's answering the question. She's also answering other things, but you did answer it. It's showing up. It's being vulnerable is how you not one, just establish those relationships, but then continue to cultivate them.
I remember Ciarra, we knew each other for years, but we weren't always close. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time we like planned to have a meal together, like not do an activity together, but have a meal because that's different. You know, when you're doing an activity, like you taking photos of me or whatever, it's like we have an agenda. Mm-hmm. But when I knew we were going to have lunch, I was like, okay, so I could probably talk to her about this, and then I can talk to her about this.
The whole way there, I was like, oh, ask her favorite color, when her birthday is. What she likes to do. I legit was going through the list.
And I remember like being nervous when I was getting ready, and it's the discomfort of like, what if they don't like me? What if I don't like them? What if our conversation goes terribly? What if we see life different? Yeah. You know, like all the things that are playing in your head, that's the discomfort that you have to push through. Yeah. But then the moment we got there, we got into like the deepest conversation and we talked for like 2 hours. Yeah. And I say that to say like, it feels so intimidating at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And it is intimidating at the beginning, but I think there's something that happens when you push past the discomfort and you make it through and you sit down at Chipotle and you're like, wait, this is actually not as hard as I thought it was.
Yo, went to Chipotle.
Well, no. And even before our lunch together, I talked to my therapist and I was like, hey, and I came out of a season of bad friendships. So I was like, hey, I really want to meet with this person, but I'm terrified. Like I was struggling with social anxiety, just anxiety in itself. And my therapist was like, you don't go to the gym on the first day and walk out with ginormous biceps. It's a continuation of showing up and working the muscles. And it's going to be the same with this friend that you're going to meet. And then every time you do it again, you're going to build that muscle of being able to talk and being able to meet with somebody else and then be able to go to a party maybe. And I got to see once I kept showing up how much easier it became and how much, and not to say it didn't still wasn't moments of discomfort, but the more I worked that muscle of leaning in and being vulnerable and pushing past my pride of like, what if I'm not blank enough, and just began to trust God with what he was doing, then that's when I began to see these beautiful things unfold right in front of me.
I'll just say that the friendships, it didn't happen all at once, like we were saying, but I went to a lot of different community groups and I didn't find my people there. Not that the community group wasn't great. I still learned a lot. I still was pursuing the Lord. All the things were great. They just weren't the people that God had me to do life with. And so I'll just say, even with that, like keep showing up. Like eventually you're going to click with somebody and it's going to change your life. But I wanted to go back and talk about how the friends that were pulling me away from God, why it was important for me not to go back. Because looking back now, I didn't realize that being filled with the conversations that we were having, like gossiping and the insecurities of like the Instagram, of how you edit your photos, all of these conversations was leading me to be insecure and leading me to feel like I had to go and do something, text a guy, like whatever it may be. They were pushing me closer to that. And then also I was trying to get out of the habit of like going out all the time. And if you're still hanging out with people who they can't accept that you're not going to do that anymore, then they're inevitably going to pressure you into doing that again, right? And so fast forward to now, I didn't realize I needed a break from that because I wasn't strong enough to say no. Now I can be friends with these people. I don't have them in my like close circle, but I can be friends with them and it doesn't affect me because my spirit is strong enough now. But it's amazing when you have a God friendship, how much it pours into your life. Because now if I go to you and I'm like, hey, I want to make this bad decision. I don't know why I want to do this. It's obviously part of your flesh is wanting to do this. You will talk to my spirit and be like, why do you want to do that? What are you lacking in this season right now that makes you want to do that? What did God tell you? And so now you're asking me questions and making me process what I'm actually doing. And it's strengthening my spirit. So I'm able to not fall into that temptation.
I think a God friend will always remind you of the God call on your life. And I think when you have friends who maybe y'all don't have that same dynamic, to 9 times out of 10, they don't even know the God call on your life. And I think that's what's really special about our friendship is we can almost redirect and help one another recenter. Like I spiral, I feel like all the time, and it's super quick for y'all to remind me of God words. And I think that's what's really, really sweet too, is like, we're really big on God winks, and I like know y'all's God winks and y'all know mine. And really what that is you know the secrets that me and God have. And I think that's really, really special. And I don't have that with just anyone. And to me, it's actually like, it's a big deal to share my God winks with people and to share not just what God is speaking, but like the nitty gritty of what God is saying. And, I say that because when I get off track and I don't have the faith to believe for my own life, I can look to you guys and y'all give me, hey, do you remember when God said this yesterday? Do you remember when you had that moment with God? And it's like, we have spiritual amnesia about our own lives sometimes, but you guys are almost like a journal of like remembrance for me of like, no, God told you that, like stand on that. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And we laugh about it and it feels lighthearted, but it's very monumental moments in my life. And so, but I think to kind of go back to that point is a God friend will remind you of the God call. And I think other friendships, either one, they're ignorant to it, or two, they don't care about it. And when I don't care about my God call, why would I care about my friend's God call? So if she wants to stop drinking, well, I don't really care if I'm drinking. I'm not going to stop her from drinking, right? I'm going to encourage it. Well, we have fun when we do this, right? And I think you just have to be careful. I know a very like common quote is like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And as cliche as that is, it's true. I think we talked about this even in our last episode, like when you surround yourself with people who have a healthy marriage, you shouldn't be surprised when you start moving towards a healthier marriage. When you surround yourself with people who enjoy reading, you're like, wait, I want want to read a book, right? And that's that's a smaller thing, but it is when I surround I was considering playing soccer because Ashley, you know what I mean? Like, I've never played soccer a day in my life. And yet I've played because my friends have played. But the same is true in the opposite end. When you are running with the crowd that's doing things that maybe you're not as interested in doing, you shouldn't be surprised when you keep feeling that tug. You just have to be you don't have to be anything. But if you are you're conscious of where you want your life to go, I would challenge you who is in your circle. And one thing that I think is important too is not everybody has to be your inner circle. And that's true in the church world too. Not every friendship is my closest friend, right? I love that Jesus modeled this out, right? He had thousands really who followed him, and he had 12 disciples, but he had the 3 that were really close. And I think that is kind of safe to model out in our own lives. Not everybody has to be your best friend. Not everybody was made to be your best friend. And I think you experience even a lot of disappointment when you expect friends who are only supposed to be on the outer circle, when you expect them to be in your inner circle.
That's good. Yeah, I want to speak to that. I feel like even just for us in our church, there's so many amazing women. Like, I'm like, man, I wish I had time in my life to be best friends with everyone. Like, every day I would have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner planned with someone, because they're all, like, I love them so much. But I've also, like, I've been put in places to meet certain people, but I'm also not in certain rooms. And I think, like, that can almost be a hard thing too. Like, to kind of, even like when we all started getting really close, like, all of y'all were single and I was the only one with a husband and kids. And like, at first when y'all would hang out, it was never intentional. I was always invited, but being like, oh, I can't, like, you know, I need to be home tonight. I started to like really think of, the enemy would want to attack me and be like, oh, because you're not, like, it's because you're older, or they don't want to be around you because you're annoying or whatever. Like, I would start to get these thoughts. And I remember sitting with the Lord on it one day and just being like, what? Like, I don't get it. And he's like, you are meant to be in the rooms that I have for you. And like, you're not meant to be in that room in this season. And so I think that someone out there needs to hear that. Like, you're not left out. Like, that could almost even be God's protection, that you're not in that room and that you're not in that space. Like, we just had our retreat for college and I was so excited to go. But then as the time drew closer, I was like, I have literally an almost 3-month-old. Like, I can't bounce for 2 nights. Like, me personally, deep in my heart, I really couldn't, even though I wanted to so bad. But it's like that battling of the flesh and the spirit. And I had to trust that I wasn't meant to be there. And I loved that y'all were there. And like, I love hearing the stories of it, but there's certain things as well when it comes to friendships that are like these delicate situations that you're going to be placed in. And I would say in those situations, relying on the Lord to like put you where you're supposed to be and surround you with the people that you're supposed to be surrounded by.
That is so good. And my pastor had told me too, if you want to be in spaces, you want to hang out with people, and because you're looking on the side of like, I wasn't included. Yeah. But on the other side, if you don't allow the enemy to put those thoughts in your head, create the spaces that you want. Yeah. So you invite them to the things that you want to do. Then you're creating the spaces for it.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Go ahead.
Me and Ashley had a conversation about this, because as I have stepped into a season of being a wife and a mom now, just like you said, like I used to be able to pick up and go for walks at any time when Ashley would call. And she called me the other day and was like, do you want to go for a walk? And I was like, I have to make dinner and I have to make sure this is taken care of. And I had this moment of just grief of my life and where I'm at, as much as I'm thankful for it. And then God was like, invite her then into your life. Yes. And I was like, she's not going to want to help me cook dinner and watch me clean my house. And then the next day I told her, I was like, yeah, I felt God say. She was like, it was so cute. Before we hung up, she was like, and just for the record, I would have loved to sit and watch with you. And it was such a sweet, and that's what God friendships look like. It's not a relationship where just when it's beneficial, I'll be around. It's when you can't give me anything that I'm still here. It's when you're transitioning into being a new mom with a new baby and 2 other littles, that we are still here. And it's okay if it, just like Colby said today, how the room looks right now, that's how it looks. I love it. It looks perfect to me. And it
was trash. The boys' bedroom is literally trash.
But that's what it is that comfort of like, I know this person is going to come into my space and they're going to love and welcome and embrace me in every season. And I don't have to have the worry of, I have to have this polished, perfect life, because the reality of it is none of us have that. What were you going to say?
I think God friends are adaptable. You should be able to, when seasons change, that doesn't dictate what our friendship will mean. It will change our friendship in the way that what we might have used to do, we don't all do. But I remember like when you and Thomas started dating, that was a big life change for you. It's silly to think it wouldn't in some ways change our friendship, but not in how close we are, not in how much we love each other, but that the dynamic is going to look a little bit different. And at first that was difficult for me, and we worked through it because God friends also have honest conversations. But we worked through it, and we were able to then navigate all these different life changes. That was like life change number 2, but then came a ton. And I think a God friendship should be adaptable and should encourage those life changes because they're God life changes. But I also think, Hailey, you kind of touched a little bit on something that I think there is probably a misconception that God friendships don't have like tiffs, arguments, insecurities, and we've all had our fair share of those. And I think the difference is how you handle them. Because I've had tiffs in just a regular friendship, and then I've had tiffs with y'all, and it's heartbreaking both ways. But anytime I'm on the outs, and they don't last very long, but anytime I have a tiff with either of y'all, it is actually very painful to me. And I think it would be just ignorant to think that God friendships don't also have moments of insecurity or like, we need to hash this out, or like, let's talk this out, or and I think that's something that we should talk about, because like, one, I think sometimes you think like, well, if we fight, maybe we're not meant to be friends. And I don't think that's true. But I also think, how do you handle arguments or things like that in a God friendship, and in a regular friendship too, but specifically in these God friendships?
That's so good. That's such a good question. I feel like even Colby and I, sometimes when we have a little spat, we call it an opportunity for growth.
That's good.
Because that's really what it is. Like, okay, this is a pain point for me, or hey, you did that and it hurt my feelings. Like, I would say the first thing is bring it to the Lord, because there's times that I've had people hurt my feelings, and immediately I want to be like, hey, you did that, it was rude, like you should apologize or whatever. But in praying about it, the Lord is showing me like, no, this is what actually they're going through right now. And like, you need to not be so self-centered, and maybe take a look at all that they're dealing with. Like, it's not about you. Like, that wasn't about you at all. And I'm so glad that I prayed about it, because I'm like, geez, I would have just made life so much harder for them if I was like, you hurt my feelings. Like, they're already dealing with so much. They don't need this on their plate too, you know? But then there's times where I pray about it and talking to the Lord, and he's like, okay, you need to have a conversation. Or, hey, maybe talk to someone else about that. So I know there's times that I've talked with each of you, like, hey, this is happening. Like, I don't know what I should do. And like, even getting that wise counsel from a friend that's completely not involved in the situation is able to give you a better picture if the Lord doesn't. And then in your own, if the Lord does tell you to work it out with that person in your own conversation with that person, coming at it from a way of, this is how I feel, not attacking them, because I feel like that is always an immediate way to make sure someone's walls go up. When you're like, hey, you said this and it hurt my feelings, it's easier to be like, hey, when you were talking earlier, I felt that you were directing that towards me and I let my feelings get hurt by that, is there something that I did to like cause you to feel that way or whatever, like in a way kind of
rewording.
Right, like handling it delicately, and the Lord will grace you for that conversation if you've brought it to him. And he's probably also preparing the heart of the person that you need to speak with so that they're ready to receive the conversation as well, because sometimes you don't even know you've done something wrong and someone brings it to you and you're like, oh dang, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Like, you know, and I think that that's the practical way of handling an argument or an opportunity for growth.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the perfect way to talk about what healthy friendships look like, because healthy friendships do have disagreements. We're just like you said at the beginning, we're different beings. We're created differently. We think differently. We're very sensitive and very bold and very open to communicative, and sometimes I shut down, and so we all work in these multifaceted ways. But I think what it comes down to is like when you do have those tiffs and stuff like that, healthy friendship looks like the Lord being first, and then reminding yourself, our friendship, that like, hey, we're second to one another. And I think realistically it doesn't, as much as it seems on the outside. I remember we had a comment that said something about like, you guys make sisterhood look so fun or something like that. And as fun and as great and as close as it seems when we're here, just like you said, we have had come to Jesus moments where we've all sat at a table and been like, we need to figure this out because we're not okay. And I think what that looks like and how we come to those points is when we're first, just like you said with the retreat, like healthy friendships are also cultivated out of first having that relationship with the Lord. Because if you are my first, then you're gonna fail me. If Tara is my first, you're gonna fail me. And I want you to kind of talk about that season you and I walked through of having that. It was me and you, and I think one sign of an unhealthy friendship is it does mimic marriage in ways that I've been able to realize now in marriage, that we were each other's one, and we were each other's codependent, and we were each other's first. And it was, what do you think about this first? And so I want you to kind of talk and expanding on that.
Yeah, I know, like, for me in that season, I was discontent with my own life, and I was really looking to whoever was up to fill whoever was up for it to kind of fill this longing in my own heart. And that just happened to be Ciarra. We had already been close, and then we kind of went through some things together that brought us closer. And so in that season, it was easy to look to her to kind of be my number one. And so every emotion, every like angry moment, anything that I felt I needed to release somewhere, I released it to her. And that was a difficult season already. And so I was bringing these super heavy things to her. And one day we had kind of, I think my own situation kind of led me into a spiral, and we really just had a conversation together, just talking through certain things. And I was like, it had been clear that God was no longer number one in my life. God didn't have priority. And I was kind of in a season of like, I don't really know the word, just almost this tension with God, but it was my own thing. And I was disappointed with God and just all these things. And I really was looking to Ciarra to fill that hole for me. And it just became very clear that she was not meant to or capable of doing that, and vice versa. I think we had both, in a sense, kind of become codependent on each other. And I remember God convicted me, and he was like, I'd had this, thought or emotion, and I was going to text Ciarra, and God said, can you sit with me first? And I was like, ooh, and it felt easier to take it to someone who I could tangibly sit with, and they could tell me what I maybe even wanted to hear. And I think that was kind of the moment for me where I realized, like, this person is not capable of being what I want them to be. Only God can fill this role. And I think there is a level of friendship where as much as we think like you can't, or as much as we can become codependent in a dating or a marriage relationship, it is the same with the friendship.
Yes.
And anything in your life can become an idol, and that friendship had become an idol for me. And then I had hit the opposite end of like, I think we have to stop being friends. And Ciarra's like, so that's not what God's saying. But maybe that looks like we just shift our priorities back to how they're supposed to be. And I'll say, since we had that season, our friendship really, I think it's the healthiest it's ever been. But it just feels like it gets healthier and healthier and healthier. And I think one thing that, to kind of go back to what we were talking about, is whether you're dealing with an argument or whatever it might be, God friendships require you to put your pride to the side. And I love, Hailey, that you talked about bringing things to God, because I really love when God humbles me before y'all can.
Right.
And even that is pride. But when you allow the Lord to humble you first, it really saves like so much. I remember you and I had even like gotten into a tiff, and we were on the phone, and I think we were both crying. I was crying. And we were just talking. Ash was like, I wasn't crying.
No, we were both crying.
No, it was like, and it was a hard conversation. And I remember when we got off the phone, we were still talking. Because I think one thing I know about myself, and maybe this can apply to God friendships in general, but I don't like sitting long in discomfort with y'all. Right. And I think you should be quick to forgive, but not forgive in a place of ignorance. Like, you should be quick to talk through things and move through them. Resolve. Yes, resolve. And so I remember we had literally got off the phone, and then we were texting about it. And we both recognized, we had that phone call early in the morning, and we both recognized, hey, I haven't sat with God on this. Like, we didn't expect, I don't think, to have gotten into the conversation that we did. I think we both knew we were going to voice some frustrations. But when the conversation took the route that it did, we both had enough like common sense to be like, we are not in the place to be having this conversation right now. And I love you too much to have this conversation with you before I've sat with the Lord, because right now I'm angry, my feelings are hurt, I'm talking out of my head. Like, let's hang up and let's talk about this later. And we did. And I remember Ashley saying like, hey, some of the things that I said, they came from a place of hurt, and I hadn't sat with God yet. And now that I've sat with God, it's really changed my perspective. And I felt the same way. And so I think when you sit with God, whether it's in a friendship or in a dating relationship, you get the opportunity to be humbled by the Lord. And you get to see, I also think you get to see, Hailey, like you were saying, you get to see a clear view. And I think when you are so caught up in your emotions and you're so caught up in the situation, and you don't give God a second to say, hey, that hurt her feelings because she's struggling with ABC. Right. You know what I mean? We rob ourselves of that opportunity when we don't sit with God first. And so all that to say, pride cannot stay.
Yeah, I think that was really good. And I will say, every time that we had a healthy conflict, I always felt like our relationship got 10 times stronger at the end of it.
I will say, after me and Ciarra, we've always been close, but there was a season where we weren't all four of us as close, and we had other relationships. And I remember coming out of a season of having such unhealthy friendship that when I stepped in, and Ashley, your personality is a lot more confident and bold, and I'm very like I remember when we all met and y'all were talking, and I was like shied back because I was like, I don't know if I can be your friend. And not because I felt like I couldn't, but your personality was so strong that I was intimidated by it. And it's that discomfort, right? But when we did become friends, I remember the first time that, just like you said earlier, I had said something and I had no idea about it. And you texted me the next day, we had group together, or some walking group together. And you're like, hey, before we come to this group, I just wanted to let you know you hurt my feelings, and I would love to talk about this before so we don't show up. And at the same moment that I was so like, my jaw was on the floor that you would come at me that strong, I was so sorry. No. I was so, God was like, this is exactly what friendship is supposed to be. I was so moved by your like honesty to say, hey, and at that time we had been friends just a few months. Like, it showed me that you valued our friendship that much to say, hey, before we even see each other, I don't want to sit in discomfort. I want to be honest with you and say, this is how I felt.
Yeah.
And we got to have a discussion where I was like, I had no idea that when I said that thing, it came off in this way. And I had no intention of hurting your feelings. And it, for me, was just such a testament to your character as not just the person you are, but the friendship. And it was such a, like, it felt like the lens on my eyes just fell off of like, this is what healthy friendship was always intended to be. It wasn't supposed to be sitting in silence or discomfort for weeks at a time. And the pangs that we went through of having unhealthy friendships, like when I stepped into it in the discomfort with you guys and all the conversations we've had, like it just made me realize in each uncomfortable conversation, in each hard moment, that like this is how it was supposed to be. As much as it's like, ugh, it also, I'm like, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. Because just like you said, I don't remember which one of you said it, but we were always better for it when we came on the outside of that hard point.
Well, even when I think about relationship with God, if the Word calls Jesus our friend, there are things that we work through with God, and I can think of things within the last month, many things that I've had to work through with God, and they feel like almost like tiffs with a friend because they're so heartbreaking, and that you don't want to sit in this discomfort and this like, you know, this tiff with this person that you really, really love. But every time I work it out with God, it's really me needing to do the working out. My relationship with God feels stronger and sweeter after. And I think the fruit of the difficult conversations and the confrontation that for me has always felt so hard. Like I've always hated confrontation. And now, because I've gotten to see the fruit of it is actually strength. I'm a lot more inclined to just have a conversation. And what I love is the more that we have had these conversations, one, the more we have to have them less, but also the easier they are each time that we do. And so I think even just encourage, I think we've talked about this in an episode before, don't discount a friendship because you had a disagreement or two. Now, I think you should just be mindful of like how you handle, how these things are getting handled. But I've never had to question with you guys if our friendship was healthy or if this friendship was right for me. But I have had to look inward and say, where was I wrong in this situation? Or how did my tone affect how that was interpreted, right? But then there are other relationships where I'm like, no, I think this is just unhealthy, you know? And I think when you do life with God, you're given the discernment to know, is this friendship where I'm supposed to be right now? Whether it's serving me, if it's benefiting me, really the question is this God where you would have me be with this person, right? And if the answer is no, it is painful and it is hard to walk away. But when you prolong that season of staying in that friendship, it only hurts more. And so I know that there's probably people that you're watching this, and as we've been talking, you're like, ugh, like I know the friendship I'm supposed to let go of. And I love, even our pastor talked about it yesterday as we've been studying out Jonah. Like, who is on your boat that was never supposed to be on your boat, and how is that prohibiting where God wants to take you, or the storms in your life that you're facing? Could it be that there's someone that's still in your boat? Go listen to the message. But could it be that there's someone on your boat that God's like, hey, they're not supposed to be here anymore? And so I would just challenge you, as painful as that is, there's so much fruit on the other side of your obedience. And I love, Ashley, you're a perfect testament to that, of when you let go of what's not for you anymore. It might take a year, it might take 5 years, but you get to someday walk into the God doors that he has for you. And not only is that your obedience, but it's also so much sweeter that way. And so I just want to encourage anyone who maybe you are experiencing that tension, because I've been there before and it is hard, but it's so much, it's so worth it to just be obedient, to let go when God says let go, and trust that there is something on the other side of it.
I love that. I love that you mentioned just listening to God's voice, to let that lead you, because I think sometimes we think, even if, like, you know, this person's goes to my church and all these things. Like, why it should be a good relationship. But I think when God wants to continue to correct us and lead us in the path and purpose that we have, he'll send people, but also the enemy will do the same in wanting to distract us and derail us. And so I think allowing the Holy Spirit to really lead, even if it is somebody at church, just like we talked about in dating, just because they are in our church and stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue to be best friends with them. And even Christians, you can have an unhealthy, toxic relationship with. And so I think allowing the Holy Spirit to be the guide that kind of leads you, not just in, should this person be my friend? Should I stay friends with this person? But also in, who do I befriend? Yeah. And I think we should talk about that of like, I know that's the biggest question of like, okay, I'm doing the things. Now, how do I see the friend? How do I make the friend? How do I keep the friend? What do I do?
I think practically, one, yes, we've talked about pray, but you can pray intentionally. Hey, God, highlight someone to me that you want me to speak to. I've said it before on the podcast, but Hailey was so highlighted to me in a community group. We didn't connect inside the community group a lot. It was because afterwards, well, we found out we went to the same college. So it was an instant connection though. So if you can find something that y'all will instantly relate on, go from there. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're both Bearcats. Like, can I have your number? No, for real. And I remember in that season, I was like, I wanted to text her and I didn't know that she thought the same thing, but one of us had to step outside our comfort zone and just go for it. And so if God is highlighting someone to you, ask them to coffee, ask them to go on a walk. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing. And it's day by day that your relationship is going to grow. Yeah. We started from that.
Even like the season I'm in right now, it is harder for me to like go do things. But if you're in a season where you have little kids or maybe like you have an injury or something, I don't know, like you're at home a lot, invite someone in, like prepare a table, prepare a place, have them come in. Like that's how you form the best relationships, is like literally living life together. So like you said, she would have been happy to watch you wash your dishes and cook dinner.
Yeah. As long as I didn't have to help. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I've heard so many people talk about how I just want a friend. I wish they would want to hang out with me. And they would say, I'm nervous to reach out to them. And I'm like, I promise you, they're having the same exact thoughts on the other side.
Even when, as you were talking, Ash, I kept hearing like, but what if I'm shy? I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can have a conversation. And I'll say every time that God has, because I feel like I'm that way. And every time God has told me to do something that I didn't want to do because I felt like I was too shy or I felt like I couldn't do it, he always gave me the spiritual boldness that I needed to have that conversation. And that doesn't mean I walked up and was like, hey, you know, whatever. Yeah. It was still hard. I still had to push. I still had to, push through the discomfort, but I felt the spiritual backing of God, you told me to do this. And literally you get the spiritual strength to walk that out. And so anything that you feel like God is calling you to, or any person that God is calling you to, he's already paved the way for you to have that conversation. And so I love how, Ashley, you said they're probably nervous too. And then in a year, y'all will giggle about how nervous y'all were when y'all first started, talking.
The best icebreaker is a compliment. I will say that. It works anywhere.
Yes, Ash,
find something.
Give the viewers some tips. This is like the best connector in the world.
But we have a friend who she always has the same drink in her hand, and she's like, I always look for other people drinking the same drink. Aww. And I'm like, I never think of things like that, of like if we both wear gold jewelry, or like just like you said, like a compliment, but also looking around of like, who else kind of looks like me in the way of like, oh, they also have a 4-year-old son, or like I always look at my house. I'll look at the neighbors and see whose kids are out or like what age. Yeah. But I'm always trying to figure out like who else is around me that's kind of in the same season or may have similar interests that I can maybe try to establish. Because just as much as I love you guys, we're not always available. And so establishing those friendships in different places is so good.
I think also one thing that I was thinking about this earlier, I think it's really good to look for connection points. And I also think in the same way, don't box God in, because when Hailey, when you were talking about how like we were all single and I was like, I bet that was hard to like kind of step out and be like, wait, we are all different ages and like they're single. My life looks different. I'm sure that was a little bit challenging. And then I started thinking about my own life and I'm like, yeah, actually a lot of my best friends have like an entire family, entire house, entire career. But on the opposite end, I have friends who are just now turning 19. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm just as close with those 19-year-old friends as I am with my 40-year-old friends, truly. And when I think about that, I think when you're in high school and middle school and even college, all your friends are kind of your age. Like, and it's kind of like the friends that are just default.
It's like a synthetic environment, honestly, because once you graduate, it's never like that again.
Yes, and
in any space.
Exactly. And I know that is like such a big thing. When people graduate college, one of the hardest things is to find a group of people, because you're not in this pool of like same age, same humor, same everything, you know? But I think that's what's cool about church is you get to connect with people from all walks of life. But I'll say, like, don't box God in. Your best friend might be 20 years older than you, and that's okay. Yeah, y'all seasons will look different. They probably won't hang out as much. But I will say, don't box God in, and just be open that it may not look maybe how you anticipated it to, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be just as sweet and just as precious.
Even as you were saying that, and you were talking about having 19-year-old best friends and 40, God was like, that's the gift of friendship with me. When you do friendship with the Lord, it looks like being able to be best friends with somebody that has 5 kids, or it looks like being best friends with a high schooler that's maybe 15 that is a kid. And so we want to challenge you guys this week, the next 2 weeks, to ask the Lord to highlight somebody to you. Ask the Lord to bring you a friend if that's what your heart is seeking. What should our challenge be? That they just step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there truly is, and you guys are the fruit in my life of showing up. I remember you invited me to your house and I was like, I don't know this person. But in my desperation of needing somebody, I showed up. And thus, this has been the fruit of it. And so we challenge you guys to reach out to somebody. If there's, just like Ashley said, if there's somebody that you're like, I really want to reach out to them and see if they'd be interested, reach out to that person, or ask the Lord to highlight somebody to you at the coffee shop or at work or whatever the case may be. And just allow the Lord to blow your mind exceedingly. But then on the flip side of that, to fight through the disappointment if it doesn't work out, because God has created so many people to be able to minister to each other, and we're all diverse. And so if it doesn't happen the first time, or the connection doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that God doesn't have a friend for you.
And it may not be like within the next 2 weeks you've gone on like 3 coffee friend dates, but it may be that you got someone's number and y'all are talking about planning something, or maybe it's just that you went up to someone at church. You didn't just walk in and walk out. Any step is a step to us. And so if you guys, like in the next 2 weeks, something happens, or maybe you stepped out, share it in the comments. Or maybe if you don't want to share it in the comments, send us a DM. Just like Ashley was saying, we read all of them. And we're always really encouraged by the things that you guys send us. And so we would love that.
Miss Connector, do you have any advice or tips?
This girl can connect with anybody.
This girl told me she talked to somebody like she's known them all her life and realized they were new at church. And I was like, only you.
Yeah.
You're the only person I know that can do that.
I think when you realize people want to talk to you, especially when someone's new at church, they're hoping someone notices them. Yeah. And so I'm like, honestly, I look at the person before and I'm like, okay, I always start with a compliment because it automatically helps bring their guard down of, oh, this person doesn't want anything from me. And so I'm looking, okay, what can I actually relate on though? I don't just go in with a false compliment. So if you're wearing what you're wearing, I'm going to call that pink. I'm going to be, oh my gosh, I love that color pink. And then I'm going to start a conversation with you because she's, you're like, thank you.
Yes.
But I'm like, I like your color pink. Where did you get that? And then she's going to start talking. And that's how organically you just start going off of that. She's gonna be like, oh, I love that store. Oh my gosh, I've never been to that store. Where is that at? And you just keep going off of those conversations. I think if you're at the gym, oh, how do you like this gym? How long have you been coming? Is there any tips that you've learned with your workout that would help me, do you think?
This girl just has an ongoing list of questions in her head. I woke up, I'm like, I like you.
No, but the key really is find something you have in common and go with it.
Yeah. That's good.
Like, I love how you said, like, seeing something, because that makes people feel seen.
Yes.
Like, oh, your nails are yellow too. Yellow's my favorite color. Like, anything that can get a conversation started. But that little part of, like, I noticed that one little thing about you.
Yes.
And I even like how you're blushing as she's asking. I think about how I feel on the receiving end. Like when people are like, oh my gosh, I love your shoes, and you get into a conversation, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you want to be best friends? And so I think about, like, if I feel this way, I'm not bothered by it. I'm not like, that girl was weird. Like, you know what I mean? The same is probably true when you initiate that conversation. They're feeling just as excited, just as flattered. They're blushing like Ciarra. Like, they're just as excited. So I think keep that in mind. Like, Ashley, what you were saying, people want to connect. Like, a large part of why people come to church, or even if it's outside of church, but we're all desiring connection in some way. And so, and if they're not, we'll make it known. And gosh,
did you see that fly? That was so dramatic.
Yeah, it was a little dramatic. But like Ciarra said, then you navigate the disappointment. And we're not talking like that's hard. We're saying it as if it's just super easy. But I'm also just kind of confident that when y'all have these conversations, or when you do step out, I think God is going to meet you guys in a profound way. So.
Well, we love you guys. We are so thankful that you sat with us. We hope that this time has blessed you. It blesses us to be able to sit with you guys every 2 weeks. And so we hope that you make a friend this week, or if not, get their number, give somebody a compliment, and we can't wait to see you guys next.
Love you.